All right. Hey, welcome, folks. Mil-Spec Ops Monkey here. Listen, if you want that SkyGlass, it is out in 2 days. So 2/22, you can get it in your hot little hands, and I will tell you, it is a game changer, 100%. I'm pretty excited about that. It's going to be on avrlabs.com. You can get over there and do the latest download. Again, that pops out to the general populace here in about 2 days. So let's get things started. We are going to talk about the United States in general. Are we under judgment by your creator? And I am of the opinion that we certainly are. And for a multitude of reasons. We've talked a little bit about the fall of Rome and how we seem to be replicating what happened there. But the other piece to this, too, that I think is quite intriguing is just the fact that if you look at a two-state solution, right, God is not for a two-state solution. In fact, if you look at your Bible, it tells you that when we get to Ezekiel 38, that the attack will come onto Israel against unwalled villages. So there cannot be a two-state solution there because it's going to be one giant open spot, no walls. All right. So that tells us that there is a very high likelihood that a two-state solution is not going to be in play. Now, the other piece, too, is that when you try to divide God's land, he frowns upon that. And so that's why I think everything that we're seeing, we're going to go through some of the headlines today, taking place here in America, whether it's the invasion from foreigners, whether it is weather, whether it's the economy, whether it's civil unrest, at least the coming civil unrest, whether it's war. All of these things are coming upon the United States, and it seems to have accelerated. And if you ask me, did it start yesterday? Did it, last week or even 10 years ago? No, it did not. It started, in my opinion, all the way back. You can go back probably about 90 years, roughly. Go into, you're talking about Roosevelt, Truman, Eisenhower. Those were the three presidents that kind of came in to play, and that's about the time the deep state got stood up, right? You're talking about Operation Paperclip. You're talking about pre-World War II, into World War II, and the stand-up of our CIA, and of course that branched out into Ukraine, and that's why we're there today, and that's why they keep spending money, because the deep state is in a panic. They can't afford to lose 80 years worth of work. I mean, these people are evil, and they will sink this ship right here without blinking an eye. All right. If it comes down to, what they say, it's just one of those things where, pride goes before the fall. And these folks have done this for unhindered for at least 80 years. And so, so we're going to get into the deets here. Let's do this. We'll jump on over. We're going to jump into SkyGlass as always. And you can see that it's pretty active today from a military perspective, but not as active as we have seen in the past. On screen, we're sitting around 260, I believe that number is. Of course, that is a very small little number up there in the corner of my screen, but I think it says 260. Could be 280. I think it's 260. I'm just going to go with that. But that said, Text 2's almost 80 of those. EC-45, 61, and then T-38's 36. Now, the interesting thing is if we go to the folks flying incognito, we'll just kind of peel this banana a little bit. That's a lot of birds that are flying that don't want to be seen, okay, that NA, incognito. And then, of course, look at the H-60s up. 37 H-60 Blackhawks. And it's mainly just East Coast centric, right? Usually we'll get a lot down here in the Panhandle. We see a little bit in that area, but that's not the real, in terms of training. Yeah, there will be some trainers down there in that section. But now let's look at the tankers. And this number's a little lighter over the 5-day roll-up, but it's still, very active, okay? We'll look at those a little closer. And then, of course, we got C-130s that are up and about, kind of southeast focused today. And then, of course, your long-haul C-17s, busy as ever. But we won't look at those too closely in today's SITREP, okay? We'll talk about that stuff later. I did see Air Force Two has been is airborne, and I do see Flashbang is headed abroad. Well, I say abroad. He's headed to the West Coast, right? The left coast, as we call it. So, okay, so let's do this. We're going to jump into the watch list. The big takeaway, something I want to point out, is the fact that the survey flights, again, this is the time of year when, they should probably be tapering off. It's been nonstop, over 50,000 survey flights around the world. And I know we've barely even scratched the surface on those. So very active, very busy, 53 up currently. And then notice the amount of activity around the borders. And then I see a lot of gray birds up right now too. That's your agency boys. I do, with all my heart, believe that we are looking at a spring offensive in the making over in Europe. And that is to push Russia back out of Ukraine. Yep, I think the fools are going to do it. Just everything that I'm seeing. We're going to look at that data a little closer. We're going to concentrate specifically on the U.S. because if the U.S. is the biggest part of NATO, then we're going to be the ones that kind of drop the hammer and probably have most of the blowback from it. So now this one on my watch list, that's a gray bird. Okay, that is going to be one of your Phoenix Airs, and that bad dude looks to be kind of right in that Turkey, Istanbul area, a little bit out of their neighborhood. Okay, don't see those guys very often. Look to be headed south. They could be headed into Egypt, which again, that's your agency boys. All right. And then I don't see anything over in terms of Australia, Japan, et cetera. Pretty quiet today in terms of that. Now let's look at the intel. I will tell you, I had someone discover one of the new aircraft types that are out there that is it's kind of like a Gulfstream. It's a very high dollar, very nice, what we see with the LaSalle Aviations, right? Like Brio 66 or 68, right? Notice the amount of intel aircraft that are up now. We've pulled those into our database that are all military, and those boys are quite busy. I will tell you, we were just barely even skimming the surface originally. Look at the stuff going on the northern end of Israel. Now, of course, it's only 300 miles from end to end on Israel. So when you say northern end, they could be just about anywhere, if in being in the center. Okay, a little bit of work there off of South Korea, it looks like. But let's get over and look at the E6s. But again, the intel community, definitely an uptick. We've got a lot more aircraft we're tracking. And then, of course, on the E6, notice, remember, this is TACAMO, take charge, move out. This is off the eastern seaboard. And then it looks like it went into the left coast as well. And then primarily over the center of the United States, okay? And then we can look at our AWACS, right? Advanced Early Warning System. That's going to be those new E737s. It's going to be the regular AWACS that has the dome on the top of it, okay? Notice that perfectly round man in the middle. Notice the forward advanced looks right up against the Ukraine border, and then notice that one that drops down into what looks to be Cyprus, all right? But very active over Europe, right? And then we get over the United States. I've got the TFRs up. Let me drop those off because that was pulled in. Let me take those away. And there we go. And then, again, you can see, looks like a broken trace headed out towards Hawaii. And then a little light. I see some activity or some work going on over the D.C. metro area, it looks like, from an AWACS perspective. And then I see something going in and out of Oklahoma. It's going to be their home base operations more than likely. All right, R135s. Talk a little bit about this and the fact that we are not seeing hardly any for a 5-day span. This is very, very light for R135s. In fact, look over the United States, really nothing. I see one that decided to bounce out there off of the Alaskan coastline towards Russia. And then I get one that's just a little broken trace there bouncing out. It looks to be Lincoln, Nebraska. All right. Again, hardly anything R135. For 5 days, never seen it like that. Okay. Now, this is going to be your tankers, right? Air refuelers. Notice the one headed out towards the Caribbean, towards Guantanamo Bay, that area, up the East Coast. Notice where we don't see what we normally see, out towards the Texas border. Nothing. Right? We get over to Europe, a little more active, but of course, you've got an ongoing exercise that's supposed to run for the next 60 days, I think it is, right? Notice that they are right up to the Ukraine border. And then a big flurry of stuff in and out. Notice the flight that goes pretty heavy in and out of RZE Poland into Italy, right? That's air refuelers, that's fighters, right? They're definitely an uptick going on there. And then we look at the banana copters, very light. 5 days, 80 of them. Okay, so that just completely hoses what we thought our number was going to be over a 5 day period, which should have been a lot higher. We see just a little bit of stuff there in Africa, very small blip, and then only a couple of flights here across the United States. Southern California, near Beale, up near Tacoma, out in Montana or Wyoming, that kind of neck of the woods, right? But really, not a lot going on there, all right? Okay, now, I just threw a whole bunch of stuff at you. Try and read between the lines. A lot of it's just data points for you, okay? It's I don't see anything that catches my eye across the United States at the moment. With all the exercises that just ended, it looks like the main brunt is going to be in Europe, and that's because we have an ongoing exercise there right now. Like I said, I believe they're just pre-positioning assets. They're using an exercise as the excuse not to alarm everybody, but they are definitely pushing stuff around in the region. And I don't see any indication of actual exercise stuff happening. What I do see are a lot of big pieces moving, kind of like you're just restocking the shelves, so to speak. Now, we're going to look at the base activity as well, and you're going to see that there is definitely an uptick into the forward operating base. All right. Again, I think it's an indicator that we're about to go toe-to-toe with Russia. Yep. I think that's the case. Now, one thing I do want to look at real fast, notice the amount of, look at this. These are your E6 TACOMOs. We just looked at what it was over the last 5 days, but let me just show you. There are 5 of those up. The most I've ever seen at any given point, I think, was 4. So this is a record, all right? Electronic suite, again, these are talking to your nukes, all right? The fact that they are airborne, interesting, all right? So just want to point that out. And then, of course, we've got our super high altitude intelligence balloons out there gathering data. And then one other thing is going to be your Spec Ops community, all right? Okay, let's get over here to the news and kind of break it down on what's going on. We're going to start off with Swift Air because, again, if you start looking at what happened with ancient Rome being invaded, that was a very big part of it. Again, this was item number 4 out of the 9 that are indicators that we, in the United States, are following down the same path as ancient Rome did before the fall of Rome, okay? Now, check this out. This is, again, we talk about the barbarian invasion. Well, today for the United States, it's 10x worse than that because you're talking enough people coming across the border to basically eclipse the amount of people born as natural U.S. citizens in the United States by U.S. citizens, all right? That's a scary thought, okay? But it's not just 1 or 2 or 3 different groups coming across. It's a multitude, and it's all fighting age males for the most part. Probably 80% coming across are fighting age males, all right? Now, we go back over to this again. This is your immigrant machine. You can see a lot of border activity, but a lot of interior activity as well as they go moving immigrants rapidly through the United States, all right? Now, let's look at some of the stories. First up, Chinese migrants pouring across southern border spark national security concerns. Listen, this has been going on for 3 years, and it even was going on during Trump, all right, and before Trump, all right? It's so concerns, right? This just goes to show you how asleep the people that we have elected to represent us are at the wheel, okay? More than 20,000 Chinese nationals have illegally crossed since this new fiscal year in October 1. 20,000, and that's just what we know about. Doesn't count the ones that got away, okay? So, yeah, they're concerned, all right? Yeah, so are we, all right? And we're really actually concerned about your longevity in representing us, because we're about to vote every one of you guys out because you're not doing what we have elected you to do. Okay. Now, this one I actually showed in my Monkey Minute over the weekend on Patreon, and I thought it was important to bring it up because it kind of dovetails into that Fox News story. And that is this: China's infiltrators, they are coming here to kill us. All right. Now, there was a book that was written called Unrestricted Warfare back in 1999 by two former Chinese Air Force colonels. And this was their basic cookbook on how to infiltrate the United States and take us down. Now, we have seen a multitude of things happening here in the United States in terms of the California piece. You may remember the biological weapons lab that popped up with 20 pathogens, including one for Ebola. Yeah. Not to mention COVID and a multitude of different strains of things. But the other thing, too, is they had almost 1,000 mice already genetically engineered. And Black Plague was one of those. Don't forget that. Okay. Yeah. So what did we just see pop off in Portland, Oregon? Coincidence? Probably not. Again, these things are being allowed. All right. We are under judgment, I believe. All right. Now, this is the interesting piece. First off, look at this guy's setup. All right. That is not somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. Okay. They've got a very nice little system set up there down on the ground horizon. So you wouldn't probably pick it out other than the blue, a little bit of camo. You'd never see that at all, but it's down below the horizon, covered up by rocks. So it's kind of a dug in shelter, almost like a, like a bunker kind of thing, right? Now, here's the other piece too. This is what is so alarming. This was posted on Twitter, okay? And these are Chinese migrants that come across, and they're showing videos of them shooting weapons as they come across. Now, these are illegals, and the first thing they do isn't to go out and get, a roof over their heads and a meal and a job, all right? It's getting their hands on weapons, okay? And they didn't bring those with them, by the way, because China is actually, they don't have any Second Amendment rights. They don't have the right to own arms, all right? So these guys are coming in, they're getting their hands on weapons, and then you've got them first thing out of the gate shooting at targets, right? Why? Yeah, we know why. And because they're soldiers, okay? All right, next piece. Bipartisan Congress duo unveil a bill providing expedited citizenship for immigrants who enroll in the military. I told you about this before. We've been talking for a few months at least. Now, the interesting piece to this is that if you go back over, you look at what happened to ancient Rome, it was the same thing, right? They actually started bringing in, look at this, number 3, military problems, right? The Roman military faced challenges such as an over-reliance on non-Roman mercenaries, right, who were less loyal to Rome. Yeah, that's what's happening, right? So if they bring them in, put them into our military, now you've got people that don't have the love for our country being told to go out and fight for our country. And it's not going to work out well. Never does. Didn't for Rome, right? But yeah, I can't believe they're actually passing a bill to put them into our military. Well, and that just goes back to what we've been talking about in the past, and that is the fact that we don't have enough people that want to serve our country, that are current citizens, right? The millennial generation, no, they don't have any desire to serve our country on any level. In fact, 75% of them don't even qualify. They don't even meet the minimum standards to join the Army. 75%. So let that sink in. So it's they're either overweight, they're on some type of mental health medication, or they don't pass the minimum standards for the ASVAB, the scores. Okay. All right. Now let's get on. Speaking of fantastic news and the fall of America, look at this. Here it is, flashbang schedule. He's headed out to Los Angeles today, and we'll see that on the map as we get over here to this side. Look at the TFRs that are currently up. You can see, looks like he's headed down south towards Los Angeles and then up north. And then, of course, yet another atmospheric river coming into the West Coast. Yeah, it just continues on and on and on. Now, this is an interesting looking box, clearly a missile box, space operations, but I just find it interesting that it just shoots straight up over several states here in the United States. That looks to be kicking off. Do I have a date on this? Yeah, 2/21. So tomorrow, that looks like that box will go into play. But nonetheless, that's where we are with that. Don't see anything else catches my eye on this side. All right. So, yeah, he's headed out west to the left coast, probably to go out here and talk about this new bill and tell them how great of a job they're doing. May even be there kind of handing over the reins, talking to this guy about their transition plan, because coming out, it's going to be one of three people when Flashbang announces in May, more than likely May is what they're saying, that he's not going to run this next term. So it would shortlist. You got Big Mike, right? You've got Newsom and probably HRC, and or any combination of those three. All right. Okay. So let's see. California bill would force homeowners, renters to report the number of G's they own to insurance companies and the government. Yeah. Well, hey, listen, I wish you folks out on the left coast the best of luck, because once these are gone right here, yeah, your ability to defend yourself is gone too. All right. Again, just another step in the direction of this country collapsing. All right. The scary thing is when you talk about California, the reality is that there are probably more unregistered gun owners in California than probably anybody else in that state. So you think they're going to come tell you that they have a weapon? Probably not. So, all right. And I did say the G word, and I will tell you that will probably get me demonetized off of this particular show, but let's just move on. Okay. All right. So check this out here. Bipartisan House members unveil a new border foreign aid proposal. Yes, they're trying to, I'm telling you, they're dead set. They will find a way to steal more money from us and give it to Ukraine. This one here, the $66.3 billion, it's a bipartisan package, defending borders and defending Democracies Act, right? This is a joke. This is just another way to steal from you and me, the taxpayers, okay? It would provide aid for 1 year after it has been enacted. The biggest chunk of money is $47.69 billion, and that would go to supporting the defense of Ukraine, because you can't have foreigners invading their country. Yeah. Anyway, these folks like this, just remember their faces, right? It's if you vote for him again, and this guy right here needs to take a walk, I think, as well. He is definitely not doing what needs to be done. He needs to basically grow a pair. Okay. Some huevos rancheros, as we say in Texas. All right. Now, this was a Zero Hedge article that came out over the weekend. I talked about this in my Monkey Minute as well, but civil war, nuclear war, economic collapse, maybe all three, right? And we can sit and laugh at the antics that are happening. In some cases, I think we're probably not laughing anymore. We were laughing for a little while thinking these people are just complete idiots, but the reality is that we are accelerating when it comes to basically the collapse of this democracy. Okay. And that is because of the things that are on the horizon, economic woes. We can see that coming. And again, if you go back over to Rome, what happened during that time, we talked about invasion, and we talk about just the fact that you talk about economic failure, right? Heavy taxation. That's what we're seeing now, right? We're overtaxed. In fact, we are taxation without representation. We don't have anybody really speaking for us. And then, of course, it's not so much the reliance on slave labor, but there is, when you start bringing this amount of people in from an invasion perspective, the economic and equality is basically strained, right? And it puts a burden on us, the taxpayer. And then, of course, heavy inflation, right? And so the big key takeaway of this one is right over my head: overproduction of currency. Yeah, we definitely see that, right? They just print for the sake of printing, and there are no checks and balances anymore. Okay, this one: cost drain and weapon stockpile drawdowns worry this particular Marine general. But I just did a blog about this the other day, and that is the fact that we have given all of our critical assets to Ukraine to fight off Russia. In doing so, we've emptied the shelves behind us. And it's going to take, they're saying the plan to get us back to the levels we need to be, 2026. So let that sink in. If we're about to commence a spring offensive against Russia, between NATO, the United States being the having the lion's share, right, going up against Russia, we're going to burn through, in probably a matter of weeks, we'll be completely zero balance on everything. It's a scary thing, which leaves your only option is nuclear, right? When it comes to defending yourself, the only thing you're going to be able to do is pop a couple of those off and hope like Japan, they just back down, right? All right. We talked a little bit about the TFRs, not too much really to report other than we're seeing, as this status quo, danger boxes, both sides. And I do see a little bit of a box down here near Caracas to the north side. Don't know what that's about. But and we get over here to Europe, and you can see Sweden is covered up in a box, as well as the rest of Europe. All right. Let's move on. And the U.S. prepares new weapons transfer to Israel, ironically. Why? While pushing for a ceasefire. So here we are. We're about to transfer a bunch of stuff over to them. And that may be why we just a few minutes ago actually vetoed the UN Security Council proposal to basically stop it all, right? So anyway, if you noticed, Flashbang continues to try to wedge himself into the Israeli situation when both Bibi and the Saudi prince, neither one of them want him around, all right? All right, let's talk about the base operations. What's going on at the bases? We still have a couple of stories we're going to talk about as we get through these where they kind of match up in a line with what's going on in the region. But this one, for example, you've got Omni coming in from Indianapolis, and then it looks like they turned around and went to Perot Field. And then we've got this Atlas Air 747 that looked to have gone back to Fort Campbell from there. Now, these look to be troop-related. They just seem to be, based on all the stuff going on with the European side of the house. So over to Dover, and you're going to see a significant uptick on the 747s coming in, all right? Now, that's a C-17 at the very top there, coming out of Black Tickle, Netherlands. But let's see, we've got a 747 in from Chicago, two of them from Chicago. And then we go down a little further, you've got Amerijet coming in from Miami. And then we go to the outbound side, right? Where are these aircraft going? Atlas Air headed back to Ramstein, Camber to Ramstein, and those are the two. So it looks like they're headed over to Europe, all right? With the exercise going or the spring offensive coming, that would make a lot of sense. And then we talk about this is going to be Ramstein. Notice you can see the arrival coming in from Dover. This one coming in from Turkey, 767. That's a camber flight out of Dover. So we got troops coming in, what it looks like. Outbound, it looks like we're sending some folks to Doha out of Ramstein. And then Atlas Air looks to be turning around, going back to Baltimore. And then this one into Turkey, another camber flight. So we are continuing to push things. Now, remember, if it's a European exercise, they would stay in Europe. They're not doing that. They're going to the Middle East from there, all right? Another indicator that this is going to probably expand beyond just Ukraine, okay? Now, look at the amount of activity happening at the forward operating base, all right? Look at this. The Brits are in. Go down a little further. We've got NATO's in there. Base commander is in. And don't know who the Global Air Dream Team is, but we'll go on down a little further. Camber Flight 747. That's the Saudis on a 747, although this is commercial. Could be commercial related. Then we go over here to the outbound leg, and NATO's going to destination unknown. Looks like the Duke 28 is headed back probably to his home base in Wiesbaden. And Atlas Air looks to be headed to Seoul, going back over, probably get some more artillery. And then a Camber Flight looks to be headed back to the 33rd Air Base And then we've got another 747 headed over to Hong Kong. All right. That's RZE forward operating base. Now check this out. This gets interesting. The Czech Republic is actually proposing 800,000 artillery rounds for Ukraine soon. Didn't say when, but like I said, delivery could start in a matter of weeks and include 500,000 155 millimeter and then 300,000 120 millimeter rounds. So the 155 are the ones we're all running out of. All right, those are the big boys, and it looks like they have ponied up to give them some stuff to fight since the U.S. has pretty much run out of stuff. All right, now look at the Camber flights, the amount that are up. That's a pretty big number. I haven't seen that kind of number in a while. Just notice this one's headed into Djibouti, and this one's headed into Doha. So 2 Middle Eastern. This one's coming out of Bahrain, which is another Middle Eastern. So we've got most of the activity looks to be coming in and out of the Middle East, right? At least the lion's share of them. All right, nothing from the Brits. They are not showing anything on the board. Western Global looks like we got one coming out of Anchorage. That's a 747 headed into Chicago. And then let's go Omni. Looks like that one's headed over to Asia from Anchorage. And let's see, this is going to be Doha. And I'm just looking to see if we got any big boys coming in. Not seeing anything on the board except for that Camber flight. 747 coming in from Ramstein, coming into Doha. That's the Middle East. And then Djibouti. Let's check on Djibouti. Camber flight. Looks like that one's coming out of Terceira. Oh, no, sorry, that's Crete. I don't know why I wanted to go Terceira. Yeah, that's coming out of Crete. So it's a Camber 767 arriving from there, headed into Djibouti. That is a pretty good indicator that we're continuing to put troops right there. That's that spot that is just across the water from Yemen, all right? Now, look at this. Pentagon confirms a $32 million drone downed off of Yemen. That was one of the Q-9 Reapers. We've been losing quite a few of those. We lost one, I believe, in Syria. We lost one over the Black Sea, and we just lost one over the Red Sea. So we are at a pretty good chunk of change. At the same time, we had a UK tanker got destroyed. Now, that's not an airborne tanker. That's a ship tanker, a merchant vessel, okay? That's what the Q-9s look like. So, all right, listen, that is going to do it for our SITREP today. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. This is the time, folks, to get your house in order. I've been saying this for probably a year now, but I mean, everything that we're seeing going on around the world and the fact that we're watching the United States continue to diminish in terms of strength, this is going to be a race to the finish. They're probably setting Trump up for failure no matter what happens. But supposing, right, or just assuming, not supposing, but assuming he were to make it into office, will we have enough runway left to basically commit and get things turned around, or are we going to just otter? Time will tell, but I don't have a good feeling about it based on history repeating itself. So keep that powder dry. Stay frosty, folks. God bless. Monkey out. Thanks for watching, folks. You can check out the latest gear and products by selecting the QR code on your screen now or go to monkeyworksus.com.